Okay, everyone, welcome back. We will slowly start with the next and the last session of today. As you can see in the program, so what we will have in this session is basically our last thematic presentation on CEPUS, but from another angle, because all or most of you are familiar with the program. But Silvia will present it from the angle of its impact and synergies that can be created, and then we will have the wrap-up, which actually will require some activity on your side. So it will be at least half an hour after lunch, so there's no excuse. So we will discuss the modalities and possibilities for cooperation, because this event is not, at least we hope, not a one-off event, but it's actually a kickoff for something that we will do an opportunity to discuss how we want to work together in the future. I think now we have enough time that we may not use up completely, but what I would like to start with is actually to welcome our colleagues from the Erasmus Plus office in Albania, because they just joined us around lunchtime. They traveled today to get to the seminar, so I would just like to invite Aida and Elona to just briefly introduce themselves and say a few words. And actually, I'm very happy that now we have the representatives of all 6 Western Balkan countries with us. So this is really, really great. So please, if you can just briefly tell us a bit about your work.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you, Maria, for the introduction, and good to see, our colleagues and some other familiar faces from the region and Europe. We are very glad, both myself and my colleague from the office, Elona, to made it to the meeting, and really looking forward having catched up with other people about the morning sessions, and really looking forward to the next. Very briefly, just to introduce, similarly to other offices, other NEO offices in the Western Balkans, of course, we are also focusing on promoting the program and making the most out of the opportunities that Erasmus offers for higher education institutions, working alongside with the stakeholders, Ministry of Education being the main one, but universities, embassies, representative of European member states, and other stakeholders with an interest in higher education. Of course, our cooperation with the EU delegation is very strong, and try to create these synergies in country. When it comes to beyond the mere focus of promoting, of course, we try also to respond to the priorities of higher education in Albania. The ministry has moved quite a lot in the direction of reforms, as in many other countries. So it's really busy and focusing in the past 2 years on universities' governance, quality assurance, and of course internalization, not as a mere end in itself, but as a tool, as a platform to achieve every other ambition in the reform agenda. So this is where we're trying to, let's say, support the reform as well by promoting internationalization as a platform, as a tool to also deliver on quality, on better governance, and research, and many other aspects of the current reform. So really looking forward to this meeting and to be active within the network, and hopefully to then create the opportunity for other stakeholders to benefit and vice versa. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much for the introduction and for joining us. And definitely, the very last session will be very much about the input that we will get not only from the national level, but also from the university representatives that are with us now. But before we do that, I will give floor to Silvia and the presentation on CEPUS.
Hello everybody, back from the lunch break, and hello Albania, nice to have you here. I introduced myself already. I'm Silvia from the OEAD. My main task in the OEAD is CEPUS. That's a scholarship program. It's called CEPUS because it's the abbreviation for Central European Exchange Program for University Studies. And each country has a national CEPUS office in charge of the national implementation. And in order to avoid setting up new administrative bodies, the national CEPUS offices are integrated into already existing structures. usually national agencies. In our case, it's the OED, but somewhere in your agencies, you also have the responsible people for CIPOS. It's a multilateral scholarship program, and the main activities are university networks operating joint programs and ideally leading to joint PhD studies. CIPOS covers the mobility grants for teachers and students within this framework. It's been around for 25 years already, so it's a really long existing program, and since then it expanded and it changed in structure. Here you see the member countries. It's the southeastern Europe, Austria, our neighbors, and Western Balkan states. Montenegro has been a member since 2005, so it's also been a few years there. And since it's right after the lunch break, I let some others talk as well and show you this brief film where people show their experience with CIPOS. Is there something happening?
Over there. I would like to go to one of the other CIPOS countries as well to do a part of my research over there.
Our network also operates a joint program. At the moment we've got 6 partner universities who participate in this program. We started with the first students in 2007 and we are very satisfied that the number of students is constantly growing at the moment. We've got approximately 45 students.
Well, I think that as a Romanian, it was difficult to learn Dutch, but only in the very first beginning because we had to pronounce words. For example, graag, which was very difficult in the beginning, but then as long as you love what you're doing and as long as you invest time and passion, I think it all comes naturally.
Elke stof is veroordeeld, zolang het maar jurk is. Moeders schenken hem begraafde, brandende dochters. One of the most intriguing things was for me that students who study Dutch in Central Europe, that they are actually interested in continuing their studies at another university in Central Europe, and to meet students there who also study Dutch, but also to learn the local language. For example, if they go to Budapest, they also want to learn Hungarian.
CIPOS voltam Budapesten en ik was ook in Praag met CIPOS. I went with CIPOS to Budapest in the first semester and then in the second semester when I got the scholarship I was in Prague with CIPOS. The best experience actually was to study abroad, to meet a lot of new people and to really learn about cultural differences.
Actually, I wouldn't have expected that much interest within Slavic languages. So I wouldn't have expected a student from Zagreb wanting to study in Belgrade to learn more about Serbian instead of only about Croatian.
The MyCoxI program helped me to find my phenomenon that I'm really interested in. It's the human thinking, the way we perceive the world, the way we rationalize about the world. I have a background in computer science, and Those were the tools I can now use to uncover the mysteries of the brain and the mind. The journal club in cognitive science is an important part of the program. Here, the students are learning how to investigate literature, how to read it properly, how to judge its quality, and finally also how to present it to the other students.
For me, there are wonderful opportunities in Ljubljana.
I finished computer science, and University of Brisela offers the best program for computer science.
And I want to go to Zagreb because they offer the best opportunities for linguists, as I am, and because I want to study Croatian as well.
Critical ill tiger has a severe injury of his abdomen, a special laceration of his kidney, and also a complex pelvis fracture. Therefore, we need consultation with a pediatric surgeon.
And because of his thumb injury and complex foot injury, we need a consultation with a plastic surgeon.
We use just 1/3 of the dose, which is usually recommended in Europe. A result we have achieved in the CPOS network, and we also share that with all our partners.
We have a soft tissue defect on the right side, and I'm sure it's a facial nerve injury. We need additional computer simulated investigation, and therefore we ask our CPOS partners.
Michaela, you're online now. Do you see there's a way that you could do that in your laboratory to develop those tools?
We would like to find out if we have more
I will switch now over to docent Natasha Sladovic. Hi Natasha. Maybe we need new mathematical models for calculating brain perfusion. Would it be interesting for you, and could you work on that with your students?
Yes, Eric. I am sure we can address the problem.
And could you provide a nice case presentation for students in the CPOS network?
Of course, I think that is a great idea, and I will do everything.
Yeah, that was rather authentic, but this is how it's working in the CPOS network, and it also shows nicely the impact of those mobility programs. I had my recent experience was when I was traveling to Podgorica. On my flight, I had somebody sitting next to me, and he was starting to talk, and first I was not really interested because tired and already thinking of this talk ahead. But then we engaged in a conversation, and turned out that he was a former CPOS scholar, which was really funny because I tried to explain where I'm working because he told me what he's doing, and then he asked what I would do for money. And I tried to explain it to somebody who's never been in touch with scholarship programs, what my company does. And then he said, yeah, I know the OED. I had 2 times I had a scholarship, and actually it was CPOS. And then we talked a little more, and he told me, he asked me if University of Montenegro would also be present here today, because he was working as a lecturer there. So he finished his studies in Austria. He stayed there after the study, which is not very unusual. But then he went back to Montenegro and got back to his home institution and taught there. At the moment he is already again in economy, but at least that's what we aim for, that something is coming back and students are willing to come back, obviously. I'm going back to my slides now. Yes, and we said I would talk about effects today, and this story was already a good bridge to this slide. When I asked the Secretary General of CPOS what she would wish me to tell you about the effects of this long-lasting program, she told me we showed the potential of the region. That means, after fall of the Iron Curtain, there were not too many means in the area to establish research connections between West and East. And this was one of the first programs in the region. And it showed that the region has potential and very bright minds. And to get the best researchers together, it takes just some basic administration and funds, of course. Then one big effect are the individual benefits. Like this case I just told you, the young gentleman I met on my flight to Podgorica, and also we have heard about studies that show the effects, like Annie told us before, the hidden the hidden competences. Thank you, Maria. Of the people who come back from an exchange. But there are other studies that also show that we might expect more than what is actually happening. The counter voice would be that maybe just those people who are already open-minded, who are already engaged with the region in a way, they would go to the region for an exchange. And I think this is something we could also discuss later on, if you think this is really the case, that people don't change that much. It's just more likely that those people who already have these competences do these exchanges. And of course the effects on the institutional level, like these people who really go back to their home country, contribute there with the new knowledge, share it amongst their colleagues and of course amongst the students. And long-lasting connections are built. One of the European strengths has always been down to the scientists' contribution. That means long before there is a budget or a program behind, there have been connections between researchers in their field. And it's somewhat of a soft power, and there is already trust behind that they rely on one another, even if there is no administration behind, no scholarship program. Researchers are already in touch with each other and work together. And one connection has always been the language of science. That has always been one common ground. And I think it's also important to keep that in mind, that this lies beyond. Very important effect, the cooperation in research and development. It must be sustained, and similarities must be used, and the synergies also. We also, CIPOS did a survey. It was done by the Center for Social Innovation in Austria. And they took a look at the CIPOS teacher mobility and evaluated the outcome. And what was pretty interesting were their motivation, why they would go abroad. And the first one that was named was to teach lectures in the host country, of course. Then to build up sustainable professional contacts, the experience abroad, then the interest in particular teaching domain, which was only provided there in this host country. Another factor was friendship. The participation in a certain CIPOS network was also one of their motivators. and the interest in internationalization in general. What impact did this mobility have for them? They answered that it has had a very high impact in about 59% of the cases, and it expanded their tasks and responsibilities at the home institution, which means it developed in a way the career as well. Same but different. We've already had this topic. What is the big difference between, let's say, this Erasmus Plus and CPUS? That really much depends on who is asking me this question, because I get that a lot. And if a student asks me, what really is the difference, then I say for you, the main difference might be that in CPUS you get a little higher scholarship, or there are other countries involved, which now is not so much the case anymore, with Serbia also being 99% program country. So I also tell them it's a little more flexible with deadlines, but also the things you can do. I will show you more afterwards. And from a historical perspective, the programs develop differently, and within the networks it's managed a bit differently. In CPUS, the lead is a professor whose interests are oftentimes very much different from what an international office would pursue. Hence, there are different partners, a different approach, and a different outcome. Let's say some professor at the university is interested in his field. He knows a partner in a CPUS country, and then he involves this person or his faculty in the network. And an international relations office would have a different approach. They have their strategies, and they just seek for different partners. The knock-on effect and flexible solutions. Student mobility is much more than just self-purpose. I mean, the students go abroad for a semester or a year, and they come back. And if you look at it like that, it's just for the individual person that it makes a difference. But they also share the experience. Like we heard before, Petra said that they don't share it that much with teachers, but with the other students, and that might make a bit bigger difference than what we think. And oftentimes this mobility also leads to bigger projects. They stay, let's say the individual stays in the institution. They already know people from a certain faculty where they've been, and in the future they build new projects. They seek different approaches. They see what's available on the Erasmus Plus, on the CPUS, and there are many things that they can look for. You already know, you know this a bit better than me, the key actions, but this is all something that is really important to keep in mind, that it's flexible, or it leads to one another. Mobility leads to capacity building project, or vice versa, or the other direction. You also know the objectives, and brief what it looks like. In CPUS we have also flexible solutions like the mobility grants for students and teachers, and they are spread in different mobility types. You can see this students' mobility lasts for at least 3 months and goes up to 10 months. And then there's also the solution for short-term students, which can come for 1 to 2 months for basically doing research, and that can be bachelor students who come for 1 month to finish their thesis, master students, and PhD as well. And then that's pretty new because no, not that new, but has not always been there. Is this short-term excursion, where students and the professors can go to a different CIPUS country for a minimum of 3 days. And this has been very famous in the last years because it's used more and more. We get the feedback a lot that 1 month is just too much for people to go abroad, but they want to gain the experience they have in the neighbor country with their partner institutions. And short-term excursions, same as summer schools, are a mechanism that makes it possible. Yeah, teachers, it's similar than Erasmus Plus, can teach abroad. And we also have this option for free movers. If there is no network established, then still students and teachers can apply for a mobility grant to CIPUS country. And that's been also very popular amongst all the Western Balkan countries as well. So oftentimes there is no network yet, but yeah, the institution still wants to send students to a certain destination, and there is also means for that. Thank you. That was my part. It was a bit shorter than I thought, but that leaves us more time for discussion, questions, and I hope to get your feedback as well.
Thank you very much, Sylvia. With this, actually, I would like to give the floor because CEPUS is a long-standing program, so it would be very interesting if we could. Sorry, bear in my left peripheral. Always, yeah. Sorry. Yes, you already have a comment or a question.
Yes, but
okay.
Were you done with yours?
Well, I was about to invite people colleagues who actually are as beneficiaries, I mean, on different levels. I just wanted to invite to share some experiences or comments about the experiences with the CEPUS program. So I think it would be also good to get the feedback, to get the other side and the other perspective, also to the colleagues in Austria and also the countries who are involved in it. So it was an invitation to just hear, you know, some perspectives from the beneficiary countries.
Yeah, I would actually see this as a sort of contribution to that, various things, but I was sort of impressed by your observation that it is not quite clear if mobility changes people or if a certain type of mobility, a certain type of person becomes mobile. A sort of intelligent, indestructible, and what have you character. We've, by the way, once applied to get such a project funded, and we didn't get it funded. And actually, when you think, I'm very happy about your openness, but if you say that too often, I don't know how Stefan Zotti, how happy he will be. Because you see, we could all prove that what we're doing is unnecessary. That would be. Still, I would be honestly interested because I think it's a combination of factors. Then a question: have you now taken over personally all of CEPUS, or is Frau Sorrentin still there? Is Herr Sorrentin the husband of Frau Sorrentin, and has he given her a grant in the film?
Herr Sorrentin is actually her brother.
Her brother, okay.
Yeah, no, Elizabeth is still around and still in charge of CEPUS, okay. And she will always be, I think. Officially,
yeah, she seems married to it, basically. No,
This is
sorry.
Gossiping already.
Yeah. Yeah. We can bilaterally. Yeah.
But thank you, Bernd, for bringing it up again. And I really thought about it, what should I do, because I found those studies who questioned the mobilities.
Yeah,
and I very much would like to hear your perspective. What do you think about this idea that certain type of people goes abroad, certain not, and it does not really change the mind of people, because we don't even reach those with a narrow-minded approach towards the European Union, towards Europe. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, we are, I don't know if very active, but active in CPUS networks. And even before, Foundation Tempus is also a national CPUS office in Serbia. So in those things we do administer. And we love it very much. And more often than not, we are really sad that ministry is actually not dedicating some more funds to the scholarship months. And, yeah, but I even have, while I was working for the university before the Foundation Tempus, and one of my responsibilities were local coordination for CPUS, and I know it's really good. I mean, when you talk to people and students and professors and administrative staff as well. I myself haven't never participated in. Yeah, I got actually one scholarship approved, but then I couldn't go because of some other obligations, so I had to cancel. But I think it's really great actually, because it's really quick way to go, and it's not really burdensome in the sense as Erasmus Plus is, that you need to spend some really huge chunk of time. Actually, it can be much smaller amount of time, and still it's a great experience, I think. So just wanted to say that from the personal perspective, but also from the Foundation Tempus organizational perspective, I think that CPUS is really one of the really good programs.
Thank you.
So we have two. Okay, so Annie, then me, Vanya.
Me first. Yeah, regarding the question on narrow-mindedness, or well, at our organization we had a study project called Global Mindedness a few years back, and this actually was the scope of that study to analyze the change in mindset during mobility. But actually, I must say that maybe we had more hopes or expectations for the results, but in the end, well, I think one challenge in the project was that we didn't have as many respondents as we were hoping. Maybe how this survey was prepared was maybe not the best one. But actually, I must say that, well, we haven't been working on that, but how I remember the results is unfortunately a bit like what you said, that the ones that, because how it was done was some personality traits like before mobility and after were analyzed, and it seemed that they didn't change that much during the mobility. That those that were like open-minded or tolerant or internationally, globally oriented, they stayed the same, obviously. But the ones that were the opposite and for some reason went to mobility, they to a large extent stayed the same way. Well, in case you are interested, we can dig into the results with our researcher, Irma, but this is how I remember it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Vanya, you had a question or a comment?
No, I just wanted to comment on CPUS that it is very popular program in Montenegro. It started a long time ago. I think it was one of the first programs of that kind. And what people liked about this program was that it was really user-friendly, I would say, and it was not such a complex and complicated procedure. Somehow it was easy for them to get in contact. Then it was also, they had various, as you said, types of mobilities. I'm sorry that there is nobody, because I saw on the list there was supposed to be a lady from Montenegro dealing with CIPUS program. Still, I think that this is one of the best known programs of mobility in Montenegro. And as regards this mindset, I think that mobility really helps in changing a bit of, widens the perspective. We didn't make any kind of research survey about it, but still we are communicating on a daily basis with people that are using these opportunities, and I really think that it much helps them in various aspects of their lives and really widening perspective. But the pity is that I think that we should use more their experiences and perhaps their suggestions and follow them up, because in the end their voice is not so well heard in a way, because we hear them when we have some meetings or we have to do monitoring visit or when we have some kind of conference, but still some systematic follow-up of these people perhaps could be taken into consideration.
I think that's a valuable idea, and thank you very much for the comment. Maybe there could be an approach, because I was a bit afraid that we talk on a different level, that we very much formulate our wishes and what we think that people experience and what we think, but maybe just asking the students really, because they know their colleagues, they know themselves. So I think that could be a good idea.
I can, by the way, tell you, I mean, this is always when something is modeled on something else. Is it that it's not the original or what? And then people get a bit sort of, have these self-doubts. I think this is not, I mean, the same happened with Nordplus. You know, Nordplus was founded 2 years or so after Erasmus, or 3 years, or God knows what. And it was a clone, at least of some elements of the program. But it was smaller, the people liked it because, as you say, more flexibility was possible. Also because numbers were smaller, and you didn't have the job of the European Commission to absolutely balance everything out, or such things, and not so politicized. And therefore, demand for Nordplus never really fell very much. I mean, it stayed on. I mean, it served regional purposes, like yours does.
Do we have any comments from other countries and experiences that you would like to share? No? Okay, well then, thank you very much, Sylvia, again. And then I will just ask you to help me with that. Then we are actually coming to the final part of the final session today. And as you can see in the program, they were divided into a very brief introductory session, and then on the cooperation within among Western Balkan partners in light of EU incentives for the Western Balkan region, and then how can we work together. So now these two have been merged into one. So I will just, I will briefly, start with the topic of the first session, or the first part. And then we will go actually into more interactive part, where really it is crucial to get your input and to get your feedback very concretely into what happens next after this seminar. And I will very shortly explain why and how. So I need the yes, this one. It's already up. You can just Let me just see if it's working. No. Okay, no, don't worry, I'll find it. So I would like to start this session with actually going back to the beginning. And you've already heard here and there, you've heard about who ACA is, what we are, who our members are. You've already heard that we have a working group on the Western Balkans. But I just thought that perhaps it would be nice to again go back to that, remind you or give you a little bit more details about what the working group has done, how we prepared for this seminar, why, and what we would like to do next. So you've heard from Bernd yesterday, you've heard today that we have several roles and that ACA in its 25 years in European higher education or international higher education has had different experiences, has had different roles. And I think the three main ones, are that we are an association, so we work for and with our members. Our members are the likes of Erasmus Plus offices, so national agencies or organizations that support international cooperation or promote scholarship, grant scholarships or promote their countries as study destinations. So I think it's maybe important, even though we kind of implied, but we are not a university association, so our members are not universities. We don't work directly with them, but our members do. So in their capacities as national bodies, they do work with universities. So we have joint projects with our members, we have joint events, we do studies with them and for them, and we also define in our general assemblies, where all the members are present, we define the priorities. And in the next few years, and Bear has already said, one of our priorities is the Western Balkans and cooperation, and this is why we have a working group. So based on the priorities, we set up working groups, and these working groups are working, most of them, very, very actively on our areas of priorities. So just to give you an example, one of the other working groups we have is also research. So Irina is the contact person from the ACA Secretariat working with our members on different research topics that are considered priorities within the membership. Me being from the region, somehow it was logical that in the Secretariat, from the Secretariat side, I would be the contact person, and that I would work with our members on the activities related to cooperation with the Western Balkans. In ACA's history, in the second role, and this is knowledge center, think tank, but this basically means conducting studies and research and also advising whether members or universities on their internationalization activities. ACA has, I think, yielded quite some pioneering research, and I think one thing that you didn't mention yesterday at the reception there, when you were saying what was stolen by the Commission from ACA, I think it's also the distinction between credit and degree mobility. It was also part of an ACA study that somehow became very popular or very good distinction that since then has been used. So I think it's very important to mention things from the past that are maybe not so much known now. We also do studies for the European Parliament, for the European Commission, and I would stop there for a second because 2 years ago we did a study for the European Parliament, and it was on the implementation of Erasmus+, but we were focusing solely on decentralized actions. So we basically did research and did interviews with in the survey with our members and other national agencies in the program countries, and we were asking them about their experiences in different parts of the program. And I think this is at least from the Secretariat side where it became clear what was mentioned several times today, that some of the national agencies simply had no knowledge of the Western Balkans and didn't know how to use the funds that were given for them. So this was a big question. Okay, what do we do now? So how do we start cooperation? It became very, very visible within a broader framework, not only within the ACA as an association, but also other agencies who are not part of our network expressed similar experiences or lack of experiences. I will get back to that, and I just briefly wanted to say also, that whatever we do, whether it's projects or research, we also try to disseminate this not only within our membership community, but also we try to disseminate this to the wider higher education audience or community. So this is why we organize different events, Some of them are very thematically, but they're thematic, but they also target the wider audiences. Some of the events that we organize are specifically for our members, and we have started recently a series of Brussels-based, what we call advocacy events, so half-day seminars where we gather not only the wider community, we gather our members, mainly the representatives of the leadership, and we also bring together some representatives of the European Commission. So, in order for my presentation not to have only words, this is the picture from our last such seminar in February this year. So, Silvia, you can see also Stefan, that has been mentioned several times today, your boss. So, these are basically, this is the group of our members, also with some representatives of the European Commission. I believe you recognize some of the faces, certainly some of you, and the ACA Secretariat. Now, in this context, as I said, through the study that we did, it became clear that that there is interest in the Western Balkans, or that there is also a need, given the funds that were not used, to find a way to work with the region. And also, since the decisions we make them with all our members at our General Assembly meetings. We had these discussions also at our meetings and decided that yes, the time was very, very right, and it was very, very relevant to establish more links or to strengthen those that exist, and also to share the experiences within ACA. Members who have more experience with the region can also share their experiences and lessons learned, and we can have peer learning. So we decided to set up their working group, and it was officially launched last November at the ACA General Assembly meeting. Although we were following before, through the Commission's work on regional cooperation in the Western Balkans, the priorities that were defined, the ministerial decisions that were taken, because as most of you, I suppose, know, the Commission set up a platform, Western Balkan platform on education and training in 2012. And one of the goals was to support regional cooperation. So we were also trying to follow what was going on from the EU agenda side. And our goal was then to bring together the different elements that we had. So what ACA's priorities were, what was already somehow defined through the EU agenda, but we also wanted to get the feedback from the region on what the priorities and challenges are, and how our partners in the region see how we can work together. You can see who our current members of the working group are. You've seen them all today. So it's Mepiu, Sedufi, IKIK, Greece, OAD, and TPF. They are the members, so they are the core people who prepare the seminar, who organize it, but we also have the representatives of some of our members here today who were not directly involved, but have shown interest in the region. So as I said, so far, this is the first tangible output of our working group. So this seminar, we had meetings before, of course, to prepare. But for us, really, this is not the final result. This is just the start. So this is the first step for us in defining how we want to work together in the future. I have to say, again, I'm very glad that we also have the representatives of the Western Balkan Alumni Association. They've officially kicked off in March in Ohrid this year. And we also think that having the support of the alumni in the region, who are in the region, is also extremely important in whatever we define and we want to do in the future. So as I said, we had kind of three guiding elements in deciding or defining initially how we thought we could work together. So as I said, we are an association of national level bodies. We think this is what makes us unique. This is what no other organization in Europe has, and this is where we see the links and how we can actually contribute to supporting you, but also learning from the region and then working together. We also were guided pretty much by some of the priorities that were defined within the EU agenda in 2015. I will jump into what I'm saying briefly to say that one of the priorities was also to set up Western Balkan alumni network, regional alumni network, and as you can see, this has already happened. So we somehow think or believe that these priorities that were set are not just dead letters on paper, as they say, but that this is something that will be pursued and followed up in the future, but you know that much better. And in the preparation of the event, we circulated a survey to the national agency/National Erasmus Plus offices. We asked about the current priorities at national, at institutional level. We asked about the challenges and how they see working with ACA in the future. So this is just briefly before I show you the intimidating table that has been constructed in the preparation. So basically, I think there was pretty much general agreement in the survey that these were some of the modalities of how our counterparts in the region saw our future cooperation. So exchange of practice and sharing experiences, obviously, you know, or also countries with the experiences that some of the countries in the region are going through, you know, and how they dealt with some of the challenges. And also what I think we find extremely valuable is the second point, address in-depth topics not covered at NA meetings. And we think that this is extremely important because what ACA provides to its members as well is an opportunity to informally discuss many of the topics that are not discussed especially, or, you know, to share certain information and certain developments that come first to the ACA community and then, you know, are spread publicly. So this is what we also think is very important to find, you know, the additional aspects or topics that can be discussed regardless of what happens, you know, with the Commission and what happens from the EU agenda perspective. Again, another obvious one is partnerships and joint projects. Of course, these are all very, very broad categories, and I think our task now in the next, how much time we have, perhaps 20 minutes, would be to at least start thinking about, you know, how and we can work in the future and what can be done. So, as I said, what is coming up, and please bear with me on the table, what is coming up is, yes, full of words, but all of what you see in the table is based on the documents and on the feedback from you. So you see 3 columns. The first one is, as I mentioned, there were 11 priorities defined or agreed on by the ministers of the Western Balkans. We have selected 4 of them where we thought we can contribute as an ACA network or as a knowledge center. I will go into details in a second. The second one was how we responded to the priorities that we saw on from the Western Balkan platform. And then some of the modifications we made based on the feedback that we received from you when we were preparing this seminar. So this is the feedback where you basically shared with us what your priorities are, where you would want to work with us. So this is all now, you know, it's not black and white. The categories have been put into one table just for the sake of having the information. But for us, it is very important, starting from here, to be, you know, to try to go a bit further and be a bit more concrete into, you know, what you find the most important and the most relevant way of working and the topics that we should start with when we work. Is it organizing such events and not going further? Is it really applying for projects together? Is it about capacity building and supporting, so ACA members supporting counterparts in the region with the experiences they have, you know, and they've gone through? You know, is it about peer learning and simply sharing experiences? So I think it's very, very important to just be a bit clearer, because as you can see from the platform priorities, for us, the 2 that we really saw our role, as the relevance of our role was about networks, it was about support for reforms, and it was about capacity building and participation in EU programs, or participation in different parts of EU programs. Knowing how much information there is in the table, what I would like to ask you now is just to, you know, dedicate 5 minutes. I would like to give you 5 minutes to just go through this information here. And after that, we have also some other ACA members. I think it would be very also good to hear from your perspectives, you know, how you see, you've been very silent today, so how you see actually where you would like to work with the region, because you've had your experiences, you had also your priorities and goals. So I think if we just dedicate 5 minutes to looking into the table, what is there, but a very critical look. And then I think from the partners in the region, it would be very good to say if this makes sense, or if it doesn't, or if there are some other things that we overlooked and they should be added to the list, and then in the end, just start with the main three, to try to define the main three topics or areas of cooperation and types of activities. Is it events? Is it projects? What kind of activities you think that would benefit you, and we could work together, and that ACA has the capacity actually to provide. Do you have any questions or comments before that? It's either very much not clear or very clear. Okay, so in the next 5 minutes, I would just like you to, individually just look at the table and see, where you think we can work together. Also, the institutional perspective, I think, is very relevant, to know the university's experiences, and challenges that you're dealing with, and where you think that working together and at a different perspective can also bring you support. Is that okay?
Can you slide the next page?
Yes. Do you want the next one, or do you want the table?
This one and both, but this just right.
So just to give you again an example, when we say areas of cooperation, recognition has been mentioned. it's being dealt with also from the regional perspective, but not only. So would that be, again, I'm just throwing the ball, would that be an area of, is quality of education another area that you would like to work with partners from the program countries or partners from the EU? So this is all, okay. So.
Yeah.
Maybe just another piece of information that can be valuable for you. We are taking notes, so both Irina and I are taking notes, and after the seminar we will actually put together a short report where we would also, based on what we are discussing, we would also put forward the proposal. So it will be just a report for everyone, the major messages from the discussions, and also the major areas identified for cooperation. So all of this now that we are discussing will be documented and shared with everybody.
Well, generally, exchange of know-how and capacity building are always good options when it comes to region, but also when it comes to the whole academic community in Europe. I mean, generally we do have some similar problems and issues. So, and kind of these kind of events as well, they help with getting to know that other people, other organizations, other countries also have similar issues, and you can actually learn how they overcome those issues, for example, and then use it back in your own country. So technically, if I would have to choose, I'd probably go for exchange of know-how and capacity building workshops in different topics, but I wouldn't go into topics right now, if that's okay.
So can I just recap in order to make sure I understood well? So you would say exchange of know-how, and for example, a format like this one would be...
Format like this one, yeah. Maybe smaller events are even better than large conferences, because people get to actually talk to other people more in depth, because if you have like a large conference, then yeah.
It's difficult to do so. And then capacity building workshops, I assume that would be something even more hands-on, where they would have different thematic groups working more in depth and having more in-depth discussions.
Well, I mean, when I say capacity building workshops, basically we've been doing workshops in Serbia for capacity building of organizations for quite some time, actually, for their capabilities of writing projects for the Erasmus Plus, technically. Okay. So in that sense. Mm-hmm. But any capacity building is good, because there's, at least in Serbia, it's never enough. So yeah.
And there was always more demand for something else.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you. Ranko, will you link to that?
From my point of view, there is 3 possible topics or areas for cooperation. The first one, expertise at HERA events and external evaluation of projects, capacity building or other projects. Second one, participation in EU projects together with the higher education institutions in the region. And third one, promotion of Erasmus Plus to increase mobilities with Western Balkan countries. And type of activities would be seminars, workshops, webinars, and projects.
Okay, which is pretty much in line with some of the suggested activities here. So this would be, just to go back to, this would be something that I think we had when Marta was presenting. So if there is, just to promote further or raise visibility further together, right? With the ACA members, say, with the partners. Okay. And then the first one would be simply advising, right? And providing expertise from the partners in the countries.
In the areas of your expertise.
Okay, okay. Thank you. We're noting down everything, although you cannot see it. We're doing it. You will get the report. So, Suad, maybe from Bosnia and Herzegovina, the complexity.
I've just shared the same comments, but I don't want to repeat what has already been said. So just keep going. I think the main role is advising and sharing experience, from my point of view.
Maybe just a brief comment. It's not. I don't want to skew the discussion now, but when now that you mentioned advising, maybe there is a very interesting example that, well, ACA is involved, not only the Secretariat, but also some ACA members, and it's part of a Campus Mundi program where ACA Secretariat and some of the members are basically doing internationalization audits of Hungarian universities. So basically evaluating their international activities. So this is something that ACA has done before in Hungary and also in Romania. So I'm just giving an example of what is currently.
Also Czech Republic.
Also now, exactly. Also now it's upcoming in the Czech Republic. So it's just an example of what is being done under the framework of ACA. Okay. So it's feasible. Thank you. Okay. Would you, as the service provider of the alumni associations, actually, Eza and Weber, share your
I'm trying to be smart.
impressions?
I think we can support as a Western Balkan Alumni Association, but since I'm only the service provider, and we have Western Balkan alumni here, so maybe I can pass it to one of them, so he can give some feedback.
Do you want to go first? Okay.
I just want to, sorry to interrupt, but I just want to say, as you see, one of the points here also, as I mentioned already, is actually working with Weber, and I think, we're very open to hearing the suggestions and also supporting young alumni, or not only young alumni. I'm an alumni myself, but not so well.
And maybe to add, we will have working groups also in the Western Balkan Alumni Association. So I think there will be some topics where we can link to each other.
Yeah, and avoid redundancy and reinventing the wheel.
Yeah, actually, we have some university professors that are part of our alumni. So you're not the oldest one.
This is not what I said.
Make sure that you never invite him again, right?
A lot of controversy today.
I said you're not the oldest one.
I'm not. Oh, okay, that's a good.
As part of our mission as Western Balkan Alumni Association, we took on ourselves to help the students easy the transfer from school to work. So we would like to go into priority area number 7, that is networks, because we would like to contact the networks of employers. Is that I think they are somewhere in the Western Balkans, and talked with them. What do they need? What are their priorities? As the girls from Finland, they already have their study. They question the students, they question the employers, like what they want, what they have, what they can achieve. Also, maybe also do some capacity building with employers to see, like, we are not just like some people in suits sitting around the table and just talking, to see even the different sides that the Erasmus is not just going on a semester on exchange or to party or whatever. Also with that part, not to repeat the colleagues before me, that the capacity building in the region, there is never enough capacity building regarding this region. on variety issues, mainly vocational training for students and even for the university staff, maybe even some to improve the English taught courses, maybe to involve more English teachers to help their colleagues to break the language barrier or something like that. So, and also working with other associations. So we are working with ESA. ESA is umbrella organization with other alumni associations that are currently present in the Western Balkan region. So maybe we, together with them, maybe we can even more promote Jarmone activities more, because there is part in Jarmone for the organizations to apply. So also we are working with the AD in the different countries. So for example, in Bosnia, we are next year we are doing foreign balls lab. So that may be also, that is opportunity for students to evolve there even more. It's like real competition between the students to present their idea about what they want to achieve, what they want to accomplish, what they want to start or start up, or with any kind of background, and they may even get the funding. So that's one way also developing capacity building. So that's that's from us.
Okay, thank you. Now, a perspective from an ACA member that has been silent so far, but it would be very...
As the idea was just mentioned, yeah, I think we have a focus on Western Balkan, that's for sure. We have the national agency within our organization. We have our own programs. We have a large variety of different programs, either for individuals or for partnership between universities and higher education institutions. So I think it depends a bit on what is the outcome of our round here, where DRD, or which part of DRD, to be honest, can contribute. So we are open, we are interested, we want to share and to participate, but to find a concrete information. What I found very interesting for my job, because we are distributing knowledge to universities about higher education systems within the area. So we are producing information about higher education systems abroad, because we have lecturers, etc., abroad, which give us information about that for German universities. And what we found in the last years was that the necessity for information is increasing within German universities to decide on which strategy they apply, in which region they want to found a partnership, etc. So I found it very interesting to have this knowledge share. Probably that is one
exchange.
Yeah, and knowledge exchange.
Sharing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Maria, can I just, because it's still going on, we are talking about cooperation with actors, with EU, the NEOs and others in the region. But are you in the region also talking now about cooperation between yourselves? I mean, are you in the habit of having this, or I don't know. I mean, I really don't. I'm not asking with any malign intent, but
this is a question.
This is a question, yeah.
So, correct me if you are asking if we are cooperating between ourselves in the region, between different organizations. Okay.
Yeah.
I can say for Western Balkans, like we are 6 countries in the part, we are cooperating with the AD, with different alumni associations, for example, ESN, Erasmus Student Network, Erasmus Mundus Association. Maria is also our member. A lot of universities, NEOs from program and partner countries. So for alumni association, I can say that we are cooperating with them. So I will leave the floor for the rest of them.
I mean, I don't think I should answer on behalf of the colleagues from the region, but I would say yes. Maybe the question would be, apart from the platform, is there any other mechanism where the region cooperates together so that that doesn't involve necessarily, let me put it bluntly, the intervention of the European Commission, but is there a mechanism that regularly operates apart from the Western Balkan platform? I mean, it's a question for any other colleagues from the national offices. Because I'm personally not aware, but my knowledge is limited, right? Much more, you know, much better. Is there?
There is. I think that perhaps formally speaking, I'm not sure that there is, but still, I think that all the countries of the Western Balkan region, they have regular communication.
Okay.
And that throughout all, I mean, we used to be one country, so it's that we have this a lot. I mean, those that used to be in the former Yugoslav republics, but also not only that, but the similarity of language and different projects that countries are participating in. So we don't need to have another mechanism, formal one, to be able to communicate and to discuss the priorities. I think that we already have quite a lot of different platforms that we should focus more on the concrete actions to be taken. And I think that these smaller kind of formats of events, it doesn't have to be, it could be more in-depth analysis of some topics, making like more in advance, having quite a lot of information on the needs, and then making these events where people could discuss and more opportunities for real networking. That is also important because people could be tired sometimes of too many different kinds. They need the time to also digest all the information, all the different kinds of perceptions, practices and everything. And probably after this seminar also the people will think later on what they can use from this country or that country. So from that point of view, I think that these events are important, but just to think of this appropriate format based on needs of the countries, but definitely platform exists.
Yeah, the platform.
As from long time ago, but somehow to put it in reality.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I'm aware of the time, but I would still just like to perhaps get the feedback from the colleague.
Just say one thing as regards this Jean Monnet, which is mentioned. We, for example, Montenegro does not use it as it could, and for us it would be, for example, interesting, very much important if we could have first-hand experience from somebody that took part in these kinds of projects. So far we've had just 4 projects, but from the same faculty, from the same people.
So people who already have the experience, basically, and then
so somehow there is no spread, and it's like very strange because we are the country that is striving towards entering EU, and EU integration process is our strategic priority at the state level, but still we don't use it almost at all. I mean, last call there was just one project also from the same faculty, from the same field. Somehow I think that some experience, somebody who can really share it with colleagues, it would be quite good.
Yeah, and this is something that I think the midterm evaluation of Erasmus Plus showed, that in general Jean Monnet somehow actions tend to, or funds tend to be
doesn't
underused.
Seem to be complicated, but somehow the interest is really very low, and people think that it's impossible to get this Jean Monnet project.
It sounds very unachievable, maybe. Yeah. Okay, but this is something to bear in mind that we were discussing as well. Okay, thank you. So Alexander, we will just collect.
I will be short.
Yep.
According to my experience, I think that Western Balkan countries, they don't cooperate enough regarding cooperation in the field of higher education, bearing in mind that I will include also in Croatia in the Western Balkan countries, because they're full participants of the Erasmus Plus program. They are also experienced with the other programs from the European Union, and I think that in the near future we should put a little bit more focus also on centralized actions. Yes, Serbia have positive experience regarding dissemination of the platforms, results of the capacity building, about knowledge of capacity building, information, sharing of information. Maybe we can absorb this positive experience and we could put a little bit much more focus of the centralized action as Jean Monnet, capacity building, joint mastering degree, and etc. For a reason that, according to my data that I have collected, countries from the Western Balkans that are partner countries, they are not aware that we have decentralized actions, we have centralized actions that they can apply also directly in Brussels. So maybe we can have in the near future different kinds of workshops, similar like this, also in the close cooperation between national agencies, Erasmus Plus offices, ACA, association, other stakeholders, and maybe we can develop some kind of, maybe it's not a strategy, but some kind of plan for strategy or plan for informing potential candidates from our countries for applying of the centralized level. Not only on decentralized level, because more of the focus is put also in our country on decentralized actions. I'm quite sure that also in the other partner countries as Kosovo, Albania, Serbia it will become a member country of the Erasmus Plus next year, but Montenegro also, the focus is put on the decentralized actions for now, and sharing of information is not quite good in this period.
And we also know that from the executive agency sometimes information is not passed on easily.
It's much easier because we are citizens of our countries, of Macedonia and other countries, so it's much easier to make different kinds of workshops, webinars, these kind of events to share all informations regarding centralized actions, because each year we have updated informations. Each year we have the updated Mobility Tool Plus platform, Mobility Tool Plus, E+ link, etc. So in this manner, I think that maybe we can enforce our efforts regarding centralized actions. We have already some kind of plan for the Macedonian National Agency for sharing this information for centralized actions, and for a reason that in the data that is sent from the European Commission, there is a note that from our country we didn't receive, European Commission, exactly executive agency, that they haven't received any kind of applications for capacity building. They have been partners, our higher education institutions, in projects from capacity building, but they didn't apply directly in the past period, so in the previous period. So I think that maybe we can put also a little bit more focus of centralized actions, and in this way we can make close cooperation between higher education institutions in the Western Balkans and also all around Europe. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can I just ask a colleague from Kosovo to share a bit what your view of this is, of the questions, how we can work together?
Okay, I think that it is the first topic. I think it is very important, capacity building workshops, how to write a successful project proposal, as it is very much important for higher education institution, especially under key action 2 that they need. The second one, I think it is very important, increase mobility. And I think if we are talking opportunities for cooperation with ACA, it's in a development of international cooperation with higher education institutions from Western Balkan, as well as an educational policy development and new strategies for enhancing international student mobility, mobility of academic and administrative staff. And maybe it is very important to have a series of lectures, webinars, seminars for higher education institution.
So something again that would fall under the Jean Monnet action. Okay, thank you. How about Albania?
Okay, two main areas as far as we were looking at the feedback received. It is already captured there, and many colleagues also mentioned the capacity building. We'd like to be a bit more specific. We really have identified as somewhere in between increasing internationalization and helping us do our job better. At the university level, the international relation offices. So when we say staff, we think more specifically about, because these are the people who need a lot of capacity building, needs to be open to experiences from national agency colleagues, how the job is done, from partner universities in EU, so to really are the least in the university level who receive any capacity building, and their, let's say, weaknesses or gaps are then reflected on the quality and intensity of internationalization that the university is performing, so definitely this one. And also, since there is of benefit to everyone, knowing about where the higher education system is in each of the countries, where the reform is in each country, contributing into the HERE events is another thing. For many of our offices in the region has been quite an ambition moving to like regional Western Balkan level technical assistance missions, so moving from the national one to let's say regional level. And that will be a good move, and it will be the right platform to receive input from the network and from ACA on topics which will be discussed. But these topics are always very relevant for the country. It's very specific to the higher education, very relevant for the reform, very important for the stakeholder. So having a presence there and input in that level of discussion, it is very beneficial for the participants. And it's also it's a win-win. It's beneficial for the network also to get to know the region a bit better. So these two will be what we suggest as two of the top priority activities that the network could tackle in the future.
Okay, thank you. Given the time, I think we would need to stop now, unless there are some urgent comments.
If I may just
in short ones?
Yeah, not just capacity building, but increasing the capacity, because not all the relevant stakeholders
Enhancing.
have enough capacity to handle everything.
Okay, this is very clear. Thank you all for the feedback. It's been noted down. So there's a process behind. We will put all of this information together, discuss it with the rest of the ACA members sometime in end November, and see what we can propose, and then we will share actually all the discussions and all the key messages with you. And I think I suggest, at least for a start, since we now have your contacts, that we simply keep informing you about what is going on, what we are organizing, and we also get this information back from you, so that we actually know what is going on, and this way we will also be able to tell you if we can maybe take part in what you're organizing, or the other way around, So maybe it's a basic start, but maybe this is something we can start with and then keep in touch regularly. Thank you again. I think I give the famous final words. Is it like that? What is the collocation? Last words? to our director, because he has a charming way of doing it, so...
Now I'm taken by surprise.
Sometimes it's best.
What shall I tell you? What would make you happy?
You've learned a lot about the region.
Yes, well, that's to be taken for granted. No, I can only feed back to you how I have experienced this. I said yesterday evening and this morning, one of the things I want out of it is to learn much about your region. And you have been very verbal and thus helped me achieve this, I think, or the first steps anyway. I'm very happy about this. I also felt the frankness of the exchanges and the liveliness, very encouraging. You never know when you go into an experiment, perhaps no one says anything. It will be getting embarrassing. That it did not. So I think we now have, as Maria said, a lot of material from you, a lot of ideas, proposals. We are not an overly bureaucratic club, rather the opposite, but still we consult on important things, our members, or they consult themselves and consult with each other at the General Assembly about a month from now. In the region almost, or at the edge of the region in Vienna. I'm very hopeful to come together with you again in this configuration or a similar one. You'll anyway hear from us. I'd like to thank you. You've given your time, and not only the time of presence here, but some also traveling, etc. Many, many thanks for this. I have many to thank. I did it provisionally last night, just in case I would forget today. Such things happen. So I would first of all like to thank everyone who was here. I would particular thanks go to the NEO here in Podgorica and to the university that has hosted us here. I would like to thank my team, and particularly the one and only, the fabulous Maria, who's pulled this off extremely nicely. And now I got myself rhetorically into a position where I can only stop because I cannot really top this anymore. So I will now be silent, for which you will hopefully be grateful. Wish you good and safe travels back if you're traveling today or tomorrow, and hope to see you soon again.
Thank you.